with no further ado, I'd like to hand it off to Christopher Quinn.
Terrific. Thank you, Mike. And welcome to everybody who's joining the webinar today. Thank you and good morning for our friends on the West Coast, including my co-presenters today, Michelle Perez and Alejandro da Silva. So we'll get started in just a minute or so. And obviously, sense of belonging is our topic today, and how Nearpeer and Fresno State work together to enhance the sense of belonging on their campus. So hence the poll question. So while we give the last few people a minute or so to join, if you answer that poll question, we'll review those in about 30 seconds from now to see, is this a top of mind issue on campuses? Is it a strategic focus? Is it being talked about? I think this is a really interesting time that we're in right now when it comes to this topic. And I think it will be transformational for higher education. So with that, let me give you a quick intro as to me and my background. I'm Christopher Quinn. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Nearpeer. But before Nearpeer, I've been in higher ed for just about 3 decades. I've been the president of a couple of small colleges, and I've been with giant university as well, and Purdue University Global. And for me, I have a real passion for those things that affect student behaviors that lead to great student outcomes, because really higher ed is all about outcomes. Enrolling in higher ed doesn't mean much if you don't stay enrolled and graduate. And with Nearpeer, we have something that helps the students feel connected and go on to be successful. So with that, Mike, how does it look? All right, here are our poll responses. 93%. This number is going up, if anything. So this is really amazing to see that 93% of the campuses. This is a heightened awareness of this topic, and I think that the pandemic, if there's any silver lining, it brought this issue more top of mind for leaders on campuses. This is a problem that predates the past 2 years. Students are really searching for that connectedness to the community, and it really does drive outcomes, as well as predict a student's mental health and wellness overall. So with that, you're in the right place. It's 93% of the campuses are talking about this. So we will dive in and take a closer look. So first, we're going to look at what does sense of belonging mean. I want to introduce Nearpeer to you, and then really spend a lot of time on a deep dive case study with Nearpeer at Fresno State, where we launched before the fall of 2021 term. And after that, there'll be plenty of time for Q&A, both with me and with the panelists, the front line from Fresno State. We'll hear from some Fresno State video leaders by video as well. So with that, let's dive in. This idea of what is sense of belonging. This was a definition that was originally created by a key researcher in this field, and I think it about sums it up very well. Being accepted, and what does that mean? Being accepted for who you are. So there's a lot of diversity and inclusion themes in here. Being valued, that everybody brings something to the table that's important in your community, and feeling inclusion, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion are really popping up here a lot. And you're being encouraged by others, your peers, and staff and administration. And at that university, you feel that you're an important part of the life and the activity of the community more broadly. So that's the idea of sense of belonging that we all talk about, but it's good to pause and think about, well, what does that really mean along the way? But most importantly is, what can you do about it? So a lot of researchers have looked at how you foster a sense of belonging on campus or in the workplace for that matter. And I think we're seeing some key themes emerge here as well. And we'll see this also from the perspective of Nearpeer at Fresno State, how these things are integrated, and Nearpeer has helped support this for Fresno State. So genuinely valuing culture, broadly culture, the concept of culture on your campus is essential. Making a meaningful first impression. So those of you who are here today from admissions, this is quite important. It starts early. That sense of connectedness starts when a student starts looking at your school, let alone when they're getting close to graduation or beyond. And we have a diverse community. It's important that everybody recognize and affirm your students and their specific cultures overall. This next one, I think Michelle and Alejandro will have a lot to say about this one. Pay attention and listen to your students. See them, hear them, and this leads to a strong feeling of connection. And finally, giving your students a strong sense of agency, that they're involved in how they're integrated into the community. So these pieces from the Annie E. Casey Foundation are a good backdrop to what we want to talk about today. So let's dive in. Our next piece is, what is Nearpeer? For those that don't know much about us, we'll cover a little bit here to give you that context. And really what we're about is improving student sense of belonging. That's our reason for being. That's why we're here, and that's why we're talking today. So, what does that mean? This idea of how do you foster that connectedness? How can you help catalyze it on your campus? That's what we care about, and we want to reach all students. This is particularly important that we reach all students, not just the most extroverted students who feel comfortable trying to get followers in the world. This is really about genuine peer-to-peer connection. And I think that when you talk about a strong network, one-to-one connections are really even more important than one-to-many connections. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. You're hearing from me about how Nearpeer is different, but I do want to acknowledge that the outside world, the higher ed world, has recognized what we're doing here at Nearpeer in places like the Christensen Institute, and they focus on innovation in education. The Hecklinger Report and EduVentures have all written about the work and results that we're getting with Nearpeer at places like Fresno State and a diverse spectrum of institutional types. So outside world thinks that, but what do the students think? The students love this tool. They really do. And these are some quotes from students. We'll hear from students in a little bit. Here's some more, but you can invite students to do something, but if it doesn't resonate, they won't use it. Fortunately, with Nearpeer, they love it. They love it, and it's meeting their needs. And that's part of that affirmation of what students need and want. So we'll continue there. Well, how does it do this? What are we trying to address specifically? Every student comes to campus thinking, will I find my people? Will I fit in? Will I find other people like me at the institution? This is, a number one concern, and they want some help finding new connections and new friends. Sense of belonging. Not only does it have, mental health outcomes if it's not there, it has persistence outcomes that are negative if you don't have it. Students leave. If they don't feel connected, they're not going to stay to graduate. To get to your DEI goals, having the richness of every individual be very accessible helps bring in inclusiveness, and I think we'll see a little bit about that. And finally, student satisfaction. When students talk about, do I like it here? Do I like my institution? When you tease that apart, community is central to that. So with that, we've had a lot of great results along the way. Mike will chat out a link for those of you who have not seen our Impact of Belonging report. Mike will chat that out, a link, and you can go to the download there. It's about 60 pages long with 6 great case studies of different institutions and the outcomes that they've had and the problems that they were trying to address, in part by using Nearpeer. So let's have a look there. giving you context on what does Nearpeer look like and what does it do. Here, a student from Loyola of New Orleans created a TikTok video that talks about the profile creation. So a profile is really central to what Nearpeer is, and having people identify who they are with about 2,000 different variables possible. So we'll take a quick look at this, and then we'll move on and see some samples of profiles.
Hey everyone, so I'm Ashley and I'm going to be talking about the app Nearpeer. The first question is, what is Nearpeer? Nearpeer is an app for students to interact and network with each other for the upcoming school year. To use the app, first open up the App Store and download Nearpeer. Once you have it downloaded, you can go ahead and open up the app. Here you'll be prompted to enter your student email address and pick your school. If you already have an account, you can go ahead and log in, again with your student email address and the password that you chose when you set up your account.
So these pieces are key because
once you're in, you'll see a welcome screen and 3 dashed lines in the top left corner.
There
you can view your profile.
Your school.
In your profile, you can see your bio, your name, your hometown, your activities, any groups that you're in, and any peers that you've already connected with. If you would like to edit your profile, you can go to edit.
So we'll pause there. You get the idea of creating a profile, people saying who they are. This is critical, so I wanted to be sure that you saw that, because it's something that you really can't find anywhere else, and particularly on social media. We like to think of ourselves as the antidote to social media. Free platforms, sell that information to advertisers. We're very concerned with privacy, and it is not sold to advertisers. And I think it's your data, and you can learn about your students, but the students want that assurance as well. And it allows them to search on things and find each other.
Hey, everyone.
In a couple of ways. So the searching capabilities, our algorithms in the background, once you create a profile, you hit that little button in the lower left-hand corner that says Discover, and it shows you people with whom you share a lot in common. So if a student put in their profile, hit Discover, I might see Jean Daniel here, and I'll see that we share 7 things in common. We're, in the Promise Scholars group, we have interest in computer programming, basketball, and some other things. So I can click on Jean Daniel, I can see his full profile then. I can see all the things that he likes to do. And those things that you see circled in purple, those are those things that we share in common. So now we've really broken down a lot of barriers. Imagine how long it would take to find out if the person sitting next to you likes artificial intelligence and the French language and basketball, and they like to watch The Office and a dozen other things in here. So this makes it easy to do that. The things that are shaded in purple are John Daniel's passions. These are his most important interests. And again, that's important to get to. Students share a lot of information about themselves, their pronouns, which is important in the inclusivity world. Their career aspiration, hard to find that really anywhere else outside of major, where they live, and some of their other life experiences. Things like if a student was a veteran or a transfer student, that would show up in their profile as well. Last note on searching in Nearpeer, the manual side of things. We can have that automatic matching, but I can also say, hey, I like hiking, and is there anybody else who likes hiking that lives within 20 miles of my hometown, right? This can happen during the summer. So people may be going to the same school and they can find each other in advance. So with a couple of clicks, you can find all the people who like hiking, or something even more random, like let's say knitting or crocheting, something we've looked at recently. So these micro communities, you can find just those people in Nearpeer this way. Even though there's not necessarily a crocheting club, you can find your people who like to do that very thing. So Fresno State, let's talk about Fresno State quickly. Fresno State is a overall minority serving institution, and specifically an HSI. About 57% of their students are Hispanics, identify as Hispanic Latino. And it's also in Asia and Pacific serving institution as well. The undergrad enrollment, about 22,000, about 10% of those students are transfer students, an important population for Fresno State. So we'll talk a little bit more about transfer students. And a whopping 66% of the students at Fresno State are first generation. So every school has its own profile, and Fresno State's, we can help see what their priority populations are by understanding some of that. So we talked about, valuing culture and seeing this from the top all through an organization. So here's an introduction of Nearpeer to the students of Fresno State by its president, Dr. Jimenez Sandoval. And after that, we'll see just a quick video of a little bit more of the user experience in Nearpeer, so you have this context that Alejandro and Michelle will be talking to you about in just a moment.
Hello, I'm Saul Jimenez Sandoval, the interim president of Fresno State. As your president, I know how special our university is. I want to make sure you feel a sense of belonging here as well. This is why we set up a new resource called Nearpeer to help you connect with other incoming Fresno State students. It will help you meet your future classmates and connect with them in a significant way. You'll be able to find people in our community who have similar interests, life experiences, and more. Nearpeer is a special platform just for you, our students, to get to know each other and forge a stronger sense of belonging. So, welcome to the Fresno State community. Now, start creating meaningful connections with Nearpeer, and go Dogs!
Hey Fresno State students! Invited to join Nearpeer and want to know what it is? Nearpeer is a new, really easy way to discover other students at your college who you have tons in common with. But what's different about Nearpeer? Platforms such as Instagram or Facebook can be good to stay connected with people you already know. But what about figuring out who you want to get to know? Nearpeer does just that. It helps you find other students at your college with shared interests, majors, life experiences, and more. Create a profile, enter your interests, a quick bio, career goal. You decide how much to share about yourself. And you're in. Now check out your peers by clicking the Discover tab. Nearpeer's matching algorithms instantly show you who you have the most in common with at your college. To meet peers, you don't have to introduce yourself in a large group if you'd rather not. Just connect and engage one-to-one. And if you're a transfer student, veteran, or international student, Nearpeer helps you find others with shared experiences. Wondering which students live near you or have a hometown near yours?
So I'm going to pause there over time to get the general idea about Nearpeer and some of the possibilities. And it's a very powerful and robust tool for you to use. But let's continue from there.
Hello, I'm Saul.
And hear just a little bit about how this idea of culture and belonging permeates Fresno State. And it's so central to their best practices around this in our work together. So here's Fang Yang. He is the Director of Undergraduate Admissions and Recruitment at Fresno State.
We promised our students that they would be part of a Bulldog family. That's our promise to them, that when they joined Fresno State, they were part of the Bulldog family, and we had to find a solution that would deliver on that promise.
So a little more from Fang, who couldn't be on our webinar today. He had prior commitments, but Michelle works with Fang every day, and Alejandro, as a student, knows Fang well too.
A lot of our students is their first time going to college, so they might feel as confident going to college if they don't know anybody on campus. So I think Nearpeer just provides that sense of like belonging, that sense of connection, that sense of having other people sharing some of the same experience that you share, and even with some of the same interests you have. So I think it adds a lot to a student's experience.
So glad Fang could could weigh in a little bit. Sometimes people think they hear some of our intro pieces and think, oh, this is all about 18, 19-year-old students. So I thought I'd share an anonymized actual profile from Fresno State. And this is from a post-traditional student. As she says in her bio, she's married and has 3 wonderful grown children. And she participated robustly in Nearpeer. You see all the actual interest that she put in, and you can see how much about people that they can share. And this is an example of a non-traditional student. So with that, we'll shift gears here and hear from people like you who actually interact with the students on a daily basis, and how Nearpeer has helped overall. And we'll start with that question to both you, Michelle, and Alejandro. How does Nearpeer help you better serve students at Fresno State? You can jump in, Michelle.
Okay.
I was being polite.
I was gonna have Alejandro go first, but I'll go. Yeah. So at Fresno State, we have over 22,000 students, and usually an incoming class of about 5,000. So it helps us connect with students and other students, because our campus is mainly what is known as a commuter campus. So we don't have a large population that is residential, so we don't have the requirement for them to live on campus as a first-time freshman. And then we also have it's about 60% incoming freshmen and 40% upper division transfer students. So I think it just connects them more. I was a student here at Fresno State. I'm a graduate and alumni. So if I had this opportunity, I could learn more about even students I didn't even know that existed here on campus when I went here. So I feel it just serves them greatly with connecting them to other students, either like themselves or maybe not like themselves, that want to know more about a particular interest, or maybe just a different culture here on campus or off campus, since a majority of our classes will be on site this upcoming fall, but we still have a good amount of online classes.
Right. It's an interesting point you make, Michelle, about finding people who have something that's not the same as you too, right? I think that's part of affirming the community when somebody has something that's distinctly different, and then you can have a conversation around that and enrich both of your worlds. That's terrific. Alejandro, anything you want to add to that piece?
I was going to say, adding on to what Michelle said, is I wish I had Nearpeer when I was an incoming freshman, because even though I was born and raised here in Fresno, even though Fresno State was down the street from me, I didn't know where things were at. Like, I didn't know where the financial aid office was at. I didn't know where the admission office is at. I didn't know what this building was. I didn't know what that building was, right? I just knew where the football field was, because that's what we do in the Valley. Like, we go to football games. But something cool that Nearpeer has been helping us on our campus too is connecting students with the different resources on campus. So a lot of times students don't know of every single resource that we have on campus that helps them, such as the tutoring center or the student health center, our career and development center, that Nearpeer has definitely 110% helped with connecting students with resources on campus.
That's
compared
great.
to not having Nearpeer.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and particularly when you think about it, amongst first-generation students, they don't have the guidance on how to navigate the higher ed experience, right? They're pioneers in their families doing this, and there are resources that people would not even know existed, so they would never even know to ask for it. So that's a great point, Alejandro, on that topic. So in Nearpeer, we're talking about peer engagement. The vast majority of the interaction in Nearpeer is between students meeting and supporting and helping each other. But you two have some experience about some of the interaction as a student leader or as a staff member. Some of the ways that you have engaged with students on the platform.
I was gonna say, I know that Michelle and I can totally attest to this, but we're like in every single group, answering DM messages with students. We are on Nearpeer probably 24/7, more than other students. I know that Michelle, how many connections have you had on Nearpeer? It's like over 1 billion, right?
A lot. Yeah.
So for Michelle and I, well, for me personally, I get a lot of, like DN messages and or connection requests with students, and I interact with them one-on-one, because a lot of them, of course, that's a feature if it's more comfortable to interact with someone more one-on-one. So on my end, I do a lot of more one-on-one messages with students, students who have questions in regards to where's this building, where's that building, when is the date for this, so on and so forth. But I know that Michelle's a little bit different, where she's more interactive on the groups.
And let me clarify one thing for the audience, is that you can communicate one-on-one with somebody only after you've requested a connection with them and they've accepted. So I think that's part of the student agency in here as well, is that it's not like anybody can bombard somebody with questions or comments. They have to be connected first. So it's very proactive procedure, and the students love connecting. And Nearpeer, we'll see some data on how many connections they make in a moment. Michelle, you're about to say something on this front.
Yeah, so I definitely do a lot of connecting and interacting in the groups. And then, like Alejandro said, like some students are group, like you can see that they're just chatty Cathys in the group and comfortable asking questions, no matter the question, in the group. And then I do, I put my email in like my profile, because I know I had students that were asking like super specific questions that one I couldn't answer in the chat, because that just FERPA, that, yeah, I think it's like, that's too personal, you can't put that in the chat. It's surprising what students might divulge in the chat sometimes. And then making that connection, or I say, hey, connect with me and then send me your information through the direct messages. Or I was even having students email me because they had a specific situation that I actually needed to go into the system and kind of see what was actually going on, and figuring out, okay, how can I help the student? And some things are just from whether, hey, I need to know where to buy a parking pass, or they have a super specific issue that they have no idea where to go or who to ask. And so I'm basically, a great resource for students and other staff as well, to kind of guide them basically on, their journey here at Fresno State, and make them more connected and more comfortable as they see, hey, Michelle from admissions and recruitment, or they may even not even know the office that I work for. Michelle at Fresno State helped me with this, or Alejandro helped me, whether it be find the best bathrooms on campus. We do kind of a spiel on that for students.
We've had a question about that too, yeah.
Or just connecting with him personally because of the interest that he has and the involvement on campus that he has. So
Terrific. And you were telling me a little bit about how other departments use it, like financial aid. That students can get their financial aid questions answered, and they seem to the staff seems to love it, because they can answer a question, just once, and 10 students get the answer to a question about FA specific, like award letters haven't been issued yet or something like that, and they don't have to take in 10 phone calls, which is pretty cool. Michelle, do you think it makes you more sort of accessible, as a staff person, from your perspective?
yeah, I think it's meeting students where they're at. I know Christopher hasn't kind of showed more of like a mobile device, the app, but I have it both as an app and as it works great on a computer or a laptop or PC, Mac, whatever you have, which I find so enjoyable. I also run social media for our office, and so if you've ever ran Instagram on a computer or a laptop, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So meeting students where they're at, and the connection, being a helpful resource, whether they want to do it a chat or a direct message or an email. So it's finding that student, and like our financial aid group, minimizing the time that, hey, that student may not even want to ask that question, but they can find the answer in the chat, look back through the questions that they have answered. So yeah, being a vital resource for, and another avenue instead of, how many, emails have you, have students sent, or, that don't get answered, or they're on the phone on hold for a little bit of time. They can't come to campus and come in person, or maybe that wasn't even an option, either during COVID or now that we're kind of coming out of that. So it's just another way, and then students can kind of figure out which way is best for them. But if not, like I said, I can put stuff in the chat depending on what chat they're in, and they can kind of find the answer. Or I have students now like putting in the answers to questions. So it's like they're actually helping other students because they know the answer. Or one time I didn't even know when you could buy parking passes, and a student was putting in a date. So I found out something that I didn't know about Fresno State. So yeah.
Funny. That's a great example. And Alejandro, I'll come to you to answer the question that's on the screen here about helping students feel how they belong. But let me answer some questions that came in through the Q&A quickly. There's a question about bullying and other bad behavior. I'll just answer this quickly by saying, first off, there's very little to none in terms of what we would deem inappropriate behavior. The incidents that we do have are very minor, things like somebody has an inappropriate message on the t-shirt in their profile photo, something like that. The students behave well because there's no anonymity in the platform. It's a closed community just for your students, and there's a verification process that people come in, and we moderate the platform, as does every user. So any user can flag anything as inappropriate. It gets triaged very quickly, and that content can be taken down. And as I said earlier, you can't even reach out to somebody directly unless you're connected. And again, students have agency, they can disconnect right away, and then that person is no longer accessible to them. So behavior has been phenomenal on the platform, tens of thousands of students who are on, and it's been a non-issue. The last question in the Q&A, I'll answer quickly. Multilingual options available in Nearpeer. The simple answer is it's a keyboard on a computer or phone-based app. So if the keyboard supports the language, so does Nearpeer. So whatever you type in that language will show up with that in the app. So that's a quick answer to that. So Alejandro, has Nearpeer helped students feel like they belong? And what's been your experience with some of the other students at Fresno State?
In short, yes. In being a student still myself on campus, and being a Nearpeer intern, I speak to a lot of students on Fresno State campus, and even just at other universities in the chat, in our chat features and group features, how Nearpeer has helped students a lot in belonging on their campus. There was one student who was talking about how I had met with him last summer, and he was talking about how his school pride, like he's very prideful in Fresno State because of all the information that he's learning about Fresno State and Nearpeer, how we help with this, we help with that, so on and so forth. So I'd say it has definitely helped students belong, because you can find students within the same interests as you, same affinity group, same cultural background, so on and so forth. So in short, I can ramble on and on, but in short, yes.
That's great. That's very helpful. So we'll switch gears on a question I think we touched on a little bit, but how is your experience using Nearpeer different from social media platforms that you might use in a professional or personal capacity? Like what's different about it, and what are some of the pluses that you see there?
This has got to be a question that we get a lot, and me and Michelle got this a lot during the summertime at Dog Days, is oh, okay, so this is like a social media app, right? Like super cool, huh? Or like, no, it is not a social media app. This is a connecting app where you make connections and you network, and it's nothing like social media. And so when we get to start explaining, the features in Nearpeer and what Nearpeer does, students were like, oh, okay, like this is definitely not like social media. I forget what me and Michelle were saying over dog days was, did we say like this is a social LinkedIn, or like this is like a academic Instagram? I forgot like what we were telling students for them to like fully grasp what Nearpeer was, but it was definitely funny how many times we got this question. But Nearpeer differs from social media because it's a networking app. You make one-on-one connections, you chat in group features. It, in my opinion, better than social media because this definitely promotes sense of belonging.
That's great. In the app, in the platform, there's no place to share media. So you can't post videos or memes or nastiness. It's really about finding other people. So when you're in the app, you're finding other people, not just when you're just starting school, but also along the way, anytime groups reform. So when you have a class that forms, who else is in this giant chemistry class with me? And who might I form a study group with? I've just moved into the residence hall. Who else lives in this residence hall that might be from my hometown? Those sorts of things are what's in here, not content that people are searching for likes and follows from. Michelle, looks like you were going to add something to that too about your experience, because I know you post some of the social media for Fresno State and the incoming students. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're calling it an academic LinkedIn. I think that's what we kind of like. How do we kind of relate it to the students? Because they were just like, what is it? And they were thinking it was social media. And we're like, it's not. Like you can't tweet, you can't post, you can't likes, that kind of stuff. And then with like the security of it, you have to make that connection for someone to send you a message. So yeah, it just differs. Yeah, I do. Like I said, I run on social media. I run 3 platforms for our office specifically. So it's not even close to the same. It's so nice to have something that's you can connect with students and even staff and others on a different level. And it's not posting, and it's none of that. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. So Mike, we'll take some open questions from the chat and otherwise here in a moment. There is one that came through the Q&A, so we can answer that. It's about, when rolling out on campus, do you want to roll it out to just the incoming cohort or all students? And the answer is yes and yes. It's really up to you how you want your students to engage. So with incoming students, when they're first admitted, you can reach them then or before, once they've committed and through the summer, or when they just start school at orientation. But all students on campus, they have an interest in being in Nearpeer. They, continuing students who are, second, third, or fourth year, they have new interests that they might be pursuing. And how do I find people that like that interest? I'm not fully baked when I arrive as a first year student, and I may take up a new pastime. And how can I find other people who like to play pickleball or or play a board game that I never tried before? There are things in here that different departments can use when people come together. So we mentioned Res Life, but clubs and organizations. There are ways in which you can reach everybody who has an interest in outdoor activities and let them, and just them, know that the outdoor activity club is coming up with its organizational meeting. So anywhere where students come together and reform again, they love to be in here. Students who are upper class students also like to be mentors to students who are just coming in. People like Alejandro, who really has a helping spirit and wants to help others navigate because they've been there and done that. So I think those are some of the ways that it is used. Okay. And there's a question here, and Michelle and Alejandro, you could probably weigh in. How many staff are required to manage chats and the rest of the app? Are all the chats live chat, or are AI chats included? Well, first, we don't have a chat bot today, something that we're considering. But in terms of how much to be in Nearpeer and how much staff time it takes, it can take very little to none. 90, like I said, 95% is probably higher than that. The average staff person might spend at their discretion, an hour in Nearpeer every few months total. Some people spend a lot of time because they see it as a mechanism to help people. I think Michelle will be in that world because it's an effective tool for you. Michelle, you want to talk a little bit about that? You're muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I probably am in that top tier of, I probably use it all the time. It's up on my screen right now. Like I'm fortunate to have 3 screens. And so Nearpeer is technically on 1 screen, just so that way I can keep up with it. And especially we are starting class for fall on Monday. So as of right now, like yesterday, there wasn't really any much action going on. This morning when I logged in, it was like, oh, I have like 9+ chats somewhere in my groups. And so I'm almost on every group just because I am like the coordinator for our campus. And our Fresno State has a lot of groups. But like our financial aid group, the person that was running it last year, she would have like financial aid Thursdays or something like that. So she only checked it and answered questions on Thursdays because she has other job duties and busy, and so she only checked it and answered on Thursdays and put that in kind of like a notation, like, hey, this is when I'm going to answer the chats. But it really doesn't take that much time. You can have a notification if you have it on your phone, a notification or an email sent that say, hey, you have some new chats in your groups, or you have a message or whatever the case may be. So there is ways to get notifications if you are just, hey, I don't have a ton of time to manage it. It doesn't take that much. And there's ways to know if there's something going on. But yeah, I'm in that weird,
Yeah,
I shouldn't say
that's
weird
helpful.
top here, but
I think what comes through is how student-centric you are and the entire campus is. So if a student is reaching you, like, well, we want to help them. But I have to say that Fresno State has probably more groups than any of our university or college partners today. So you have over 100 groups, I'm sure. Some schools, even big schools, University of Oklahoma, I think has 4 groups, for out-of-state students, in-state students, and a couple of others, maybe for veterans, might have been another one. So you can control that completely at your institution because we build a custom instance of Nearpeer for you. So when we choose to work together, we customize the app. Only your students can get in. You decide how many groups to come out of the gate with, and you have the ability to add groups later. So groups can be things like alliances, like LGBTQ, it can be just interests. At Fresno State, anime was one of their top interests, and they have a very active anime group. All the students just talk about anime, and we know we like anime. I can click on your profile and see, well, what else do we share in common? It's sort of the first filter. So really, you have full control of that lever on staff time. It can take no staff time at all, and implementation takes minimal staff time. We'll hear from Fong on that in just a moment. Okay, looks like no other questions have come in, so we'll keep it moving along here. We'll have one last chance for questions at the end. I pulled up this one because some, asking about what does it take? Is this a heavy lift? So let's hear from Fong directly on that one.
We're all busy with what we do on a daily basis. And the last thing we want is a system that's going to be cumbersome in terms of like setups and requiring a lot of technology expertise and so forth. And we wanted something that was more of a turnkey, plug and play type of a product. So I think attending the demo is key, and really seeing what the students are seeing as well as what the staff will be seeing as well, which is also key. and the level of setup that's required, which is in this case almost very minimal in this case. So the product for us, the reason why we decided to go with Nearpeer was we found out that the product is easy to use, not just on the student side, but also on the staff side. It's definitely a turnkey solution, in my opinion, because there's really no extensive training, no extensive setup on our end. We provide information, but the Nearpeer team does all the setup for us. That's the beautiful part of it. And then once you create a profile, the interface is very simple. I mean, so I'm always looking at it from the user's point of view, which is a student. If you make it difficult, then students are not going to want to use it because they have so many other social media platforms that they are themselves have to maintain. So we don't want to make it work for them. We want to make it a very pleasant experience.
Great. Got a couple of other questions that came in. And one was about data. And somebody had read in the report, this was Kristen, said, there was some data presented in our outcomes report. And, the initial data was about adoption and engagement. And that's how many, in this particular study, during that first 3 months, how often did the students come back? About 51 times. They spent about 6 hours on the platform. In the social media world, that may not sound like a lot, but we're not social media. This is 6+ hours just of connecting and interacting with other students. This would be like your entire orientation day spent just connecting. That 1 hour that you might have over lunch, that you might meet a couple people. You can find a lot of people in Nearpeer that you really resonate with. And then before move-in even happened for them, or the first day of class from the commuter perspective, each student had made on average 24 connections. And those students who were on the Nearpeer platform had a 2.3x lower no-show rate. So a higher no-show rate for non-peer users is the flip of that. So this is our first data point along the longitudinal study of the students and where they come in. And we looked at other slices of that. For example, we said this is an HSI. So amongst Hispanic students, they were 2.85 times less likely to melt as compared to non-users. The question also goes on to say, well, that's one group, and maybe those people were more high intent, maybe not, but what happens once they matriculate? So now it's a new homogeneous group, and people matriculate and they come in and they have high intent of staying if you actually showed up. And we just reported their persistence rates were much, much higher for the Nearpeer users, 3 percentage points higher. And I'm sharing directionally the data for them, not their actual persistence rates. But I think the key here is that for those of you on the call who are in the retention side of things, student affairs side of things, a 0.5 percentage point movement is huge, right? So a 3 percentage point difference is phenomenal. And we are outcomes focused. We do statistical analysis on all data through a third-party data scientist. And for us, we want to understand what needle are you trying to move, and we want to help move that with you and measure it together with you, because we want to share in that success and be a close collaborator. All right, let's see. Last little slice of data, transfer students, we said very important, 10% of the population there. The students who transferred were 2x more likely to return for the spring term, 2x more likely to return for the spring term if they were Nearpeer users. They felt connected to the community and stayed, which is pretty cool. All right, let's see. We'll play one last video here, and then I think we might have one last question. Got about 8 minutes to go. I love these because this is feedback from the students. Alejandro interviewed some of these students to ask them, what was your experience like? So we started this presentation with, the president of Fresno State, but really what the students think is what matters. So we'll hear some of their stories here now.
I opted in to download Nearpeer because being a transfer student, I didn't really know a whole lot about Fresno or in the area. So for me, I figured I would have a hard time transitioning. Nearpeer did help relieve some of that stress, just because it's nice knowing that maybe there could be somebody else that is in the same boat as you.
One of my favorite things about Nearpeer is groups, and a lot of people can just join a group. I've seen a lot of groups that are titled like Taylor Swift, a group that, all the Swifties want to join, or boba. I've been in one where it's healthy minds, just about like our well-being. So I've loved those because we can just connect with people that have similar interests as us.
I would not have found a roommate if it wasn't thanks to Nearpeer. Nearpeer was essential for me finding a roommate out here in Fresno, especially since I'm coming a long way. Through Nearpeer, I was able to meet Alex, and I'm ever blessed for that. And something else is that through Nearpeer, I was also to meet other musicians, since I also like partake in making music.
And it helped me shape some relationship too, with like make more friends too as well. Because I usually randomly went to like some group chats about like sports, because I'm interested in like soccer and stuff like that, and I made more friends.
We got the email saying, oh, you can meet people, make friends, and then something that caught my eye was that there's a section especially for your major. So that's where I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Then I get to meet people who's going into the same field as me. I do like to study like in groups. I feel like it's better for me. I don't think I can focus studying by myself. In my profile, I actually have that I'm looking for a roommate, and I've talked to a couple girls too, and I'm pretty sure that if we end up being roommates, that we'll probably just like carpool.
I would say that I was definitely nervous and scared, just because it was going to be a completely new like environment, and I think the app definitely had an impact on my transferring process, because it did make it easier. Sometimes it's hard to start friendships in person, so I feel like Nearpeer can be like that. It can be like that, like the first step into like starting new friendships.
I'm basically from India. It was like a new change of country for me, so I was a bit concerned. The app basically helps you to get out of that awkward phase which everyone have at their first day of college.
If you're interested in downloading Nearpeer, I would recommend it. It personally has helped me be a lot calmer about going into Fresno State. I had a couple friends, but they're not in the same major as me. So I was kind of, freaking out, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to talk to. But it definitely helped me. And now I have a friend that I talk to every day.
This is the first social media that I have that is exclusively people I don't know and people that I would like to get to know. I have 2 kids, so there's like a group for people that also are going to Fresno State with kids, and I think it's really scary to go to a really big school, so it's nice, even if I were to meet one person on the app, it's nice to know that I'm not going to a big scary place full of people I don't know. There's people that I'm going to recognize.
I think students and staffers should download Nearpeer because there's so many questions out there that students get immediately answered, whether it's by another student or a staffer. It's just another great resource. I don't think I've ever seen a question go unanswered. Somebody is always there to help. And that's what I really like about it, is it really does pull you closer to your campus.
So there's it's always fun to hear from the students. I don't get tired of that. So we have a few minutes for a couple last questions. There's one in the Q&A, and that is, do faculty have profiles? Again, up to the institution. Faculty love to have profiles. Imagine having your class and of 10 students or 150 students, and you can form a group just for your class. So there can be a group just for that class. And it helps humanize that faculty-learner relationship. and helps build learning community when students can find people who are in the class that they may share other things in common with and will feel very comfortable studying with or participating in group projects with. And I think for the faculty, to students, particularly first-gen students, the professors in the ivory tower, like they're untouchable. I can't even interact with them. But if suddenly I say, hey, my professor also likes to play the guitar, isn't that cool? If they're a real person, then maybe I might go to the office hour and actually interact where I might have avoided it otherwise. So yes, faculty can, and like everything else in Nearpeer, the institution has agency. You can set it up to fit how you work. Today we looked at Fresno State, their specific needs and how they've implemented Nearpeer. Every school and university is a little bit different. So with that, we'll take the last couple of questions in our last 2 minutes. And I'll have Michelle and Alejandro get 30 seconds or so to wrap up and share anything else they would like.
Did we get to that question in the Q&A already about best practice on focusing on an incoming class or to the entire student body? I may have missed it.
We did get to that, Mike. So yeah, again, that was one of the questions where I said it's at your discretion to which group you would release Nearpeer to. And
Sorry about that.
As well. Yep. Thanks for checking that. All right, with that, Michelle, you want to give some closing comments or any thoughts that you have from today, and then we'll go to Alejandro, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, I just think I just feel that it's a great resource for students to find information, especially during this kind of weird transition time. If your university is transitioning back into on-site or maybe doing both, I feel it's a great resource, and I can connect with a lot more students and answer their questions. Like the last student in the video, you just get your question answered. You're not waiting in line, you're not on the phone, you're not in email. And so yeah, it's a great resource, and we love it here at Fresno State.
All right, and Alejandro, you have the last word. It's 3 o'clock East Coast straight up right now, so take us home.
Yeah, so just adding on to what Michelle said, Nearpeer is an amazing resource and tool for students to use. And being a student myself, currently still at Fresno State, and using Nearpeer, it's kind of funny, both using it as a student and as a staff member. I love it so much. I love Nearpeer so much. And like Michelle had mentioned earlier, I wish I had Nearpeer when I was an incoming freshman at Fresno State. It would have made things so much easier and better for me when it comes to my mental health, especially being anxious and scared coming to a campus where I don't see the same people every single day like we do in high school. Nearpeer is an amazing tool and resource, and I love it so much.
Thank you so much, Alejandro, and thank you, Mike from AACRAO, for supporting us here today. Glitch-free technology, appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for taking an hour out of your day to spend some time with us. My email address is on the screen. Feel free to reach out if you just have any questions, and I'd love to chat and hear how we might help you. All the best, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.